Hello, everyone, and welcome to the With Chinese Characteristics podcast. I'm Natalie.
I'm Cherry.
And together we talk about topics with Chinese characteristics.
Whatever those may be.
Whatever those might be. This is about the 17th time we've done this intro because our cat keeps making noise. What's our topic for today, Cherry? Because I have no idea. No concept of what it could be.
Yeah, in the last 17 times that we've done this intro, I just totally didn't get there.
No, we didn't get there. Okay, so what is the topic?
We actually did, but you know.
That's the joke.
So act surprised. Today we're talking about a history of Chinese national anthems.
Wow.
Multiple. And I want to start with talking about what's been happening in China in the past few months.
Okay.
So in late November 2022, just last month, protests broke out all over China. People took to the streets to voice their discontent against the government.
Yeah.
Mostly, it's zero COVID policies and the social restrictions
and
control it has imposed on its people.
Mm-hmm.
This came from month and month of frustration and suffering under these policies.
Years and years, really.
The protests surprised a lot of people, including me, since China, the PRC, is a state where people have no rights of assembly, no freedom of speech, regardless of what it says in the Constitution.
Yeah.
And of course, small-scale protests happen all the time on the local level, which is important to note. But a larger-scale one like this, a movement that directly calls out the central government and its esteemed leader, Xi Jinping himself, is extremely, extremely rare. The last time this happened, 1989. So, big deal.
Yeah.
Many Chinese descendants and brave activists have, of course, paved the way to this movement over the years, really. One of them recently was this guy called Peng Zaizhou, is this guy, I'm hoping. The guy who hanged protest banners and lit up smoke signal on the Sitong Highway Bridge in Beijing just over a month ago in mid-October during the party congress, which is a congress where President Xi has solidified his reign once again.
Which I know, if you're not familiar with it, some guy hanging some posters off the side of an overhang. That's every day in the United States, but in China, that's incredibly dangerous. They grabbed him.
Especially what the banner said.
Yeah, which is end zero COVID. I think it even says Xi Jinping stepped down.
I think the least we can do is to put his words on this podcast. Well, his banner said, livelihood, not PCR tests, COVID tests.
Yeah.
Freedom, not lockdowns. Dignity, not lies. Reform, not a cultural revolution. Vote, not dictatorship. Citizens, not slaves.
Yeah.
There was a second banner that calls out for strikes, general strikes of the workers, of the government officials. It also calls for the removal of dictator Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
And I want you, our listeners, to understand, even just to see that part written down, mentioning Xi Jinping by the name and calling him out on a banner for the world to see, is a very scary and shocking thing to even be witnessing that.
Yeah. Well, I want to discuss that for a second, though. Mm-hmm. And maybe you're going to get into it later, but I think it's interesting because it's not like it's scary and shocking because people don't agree with it.
No.
It's scary and shocking for people because it's seen as like a breakdown of social order, right? I'm assuming. What's scary about it?
That someone dared to do this when I couldn't. I mean, I'm almost only speaking for myself. But it's the same as I've talked to people or I've heard people sharing this experience that I also have. Like, for example, saying the words of, I don't know, free Tibet, right? Or like human rights in Xinjing, right? You think those are just words. But a few years ago, I would be saying them and my heart would beat faster and I would be sweating and I would be like feeling.
So is it almost like a sense of like impending group punishment?
Well, or like self-censoring.
Yeah.
We've all been self-censoring because we had to, not because we choose to.
But the concept of like protecting the group, like this is scary. This person said that and now the hammer's going to come down. Because you said scary and so I'm interested where the fear,
Okay, so this is an episode about Cher's feelings.
It's important, right?
No, yes, maybe that comes after, maybe because there are some tankies or little pinks who are like, oh my God, what's gonna happen now? He's messing it up for everyone. Can I say fucking it up for everyone on this podcast?
Yeah, well,
we're not a TV program, but I think it's most likely like, oh, we've been living a lie and I'm not alone. And sometimes it's scary to know you're not alone. Sometimes it's scary to know there is hope. Does that make sense?
Because it means maybe I could have been doing something.
Yeah.
So it's almost so it's fear, it's guilt, it's
hope also.
and because when you know you have no choice and you can't change anything, you don't worry about it, right? Because you like, well, there's nothing I can do anyway, so I might as well just ignore it.
But this protester has decided it's worth it. But
okay,
I think this will explain it. The censors has basically immediately scrubbed this event's existence on the internet of China, right? But pretending this didn't happen didn't work for the CCP, I think. Some people might have compared him as a moth to a flame, sacrificing for nothing. But it was not for nothing. In fact, what he did was extremely, extremely effective. Less than 2 months later, those exact same words on his banner became rally cries all over China as people protested.
Yeah.
So when people have said, I saw, and then got their account banned, they didn't forget that afterwards. They really did see it. And then I wrote, it's like he scratched the paper that glued the window. He poked a hole in it.
Yeah.
And over the years, I want to give credit to the feminists in China because over the past few years or decade, Me Too in China and feminist movements has trained many activists who just won't go back to not being one, who just won't give up after that. Same as any other movements where people ask and fight for equality and human rights and legal rights and all of those. All of them were put down, these movements, but a seed grows, Natalie. A seed grows. So, in Ürümqi, a city in Xinjiang, on November 24th, 2022, a fire started from a faulty power strip on the 15th floor of an apartment building. It then spread to the 17th floor and the smoke spread to the 21st floor. But basically, think of a fire in a high-rise building.
Yeah.
Firefighters were called and they arrived shortly. Some reports say in 5 minutes. But it was at least 3 hours before they were able to get close enough to the site and put the fire out. The cost was at least 10 lives and many injured.
Yeah.
The community the apartment building was located in was under lockdown at the time of the fire. There were videos circulating on social media immediately after and during, showing how the fire truck couldn't get close enough because the gate of the community was locked. You see these COVID workers in white suits taking down fences and barricades in a hurry to clear the way.
Yeah, and it's not even the gate. If you've seen these, lockdowns, they literally put barricades in barbed wire in the street, right, and block off major intersections.
Yes.
So I mean, it's not just one fence. The fire truck might have to get through 20.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for the listeners.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not just like, oh, how do we get this gate open?
Yeah.
It's like entire streets are barricaded, right? And you gotta figure
out how to get
that.
It might not even be that street. Many other streets are,
Yeah, on the way there.
Yeah. So the next morning, topics related to the fire on social media has been read for more than 800 million times on Weibo. People asked the authorities to disclose if the residents of the accident in the building were able to escape, what was the casualty count, how come the fire truck couldn't get through the community, what was all these videos we were seeing of people like hammering away barricades, basically.
Yeah.
And then the local government had a press conference. You know what they did? They lied. And they said, the community was not under lockdown.
Yeah.
This was just an unfortunate event. And they blamed the residents for misuse of electronics. Only that it was under lockdown. And Ürümqi, the city, many areas were under lockdown since August. So it's been months of restrictions, like many other places in China. All in all, people weren't happy.
Yeah.
People over China wasn't happy. It's quite black and white. There's a fire in an apartment building. You have fire trucks. You have firefighters who got there very quickly. And what was stopping them? The zero COVID policy.
I think this was the last of several things that happened in succession. There was a thing that happened a couple months prior where there was a bus taking people to a quarantine center and it drove off a cliff.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. And, there's this fire happened, and I think people realized it's like, I could be on that bus.
Yeah.
I could be in that apartment. I have no control over anything, right? And, the longer this goes on,
we could all have been on that bus, basically. It's like a metaphor. China is like a bus.
And nobody chose to get on that bus, right?
No, they're forced to. Yeah. Nobody chose. I mean, the bus driver didn't want to drive it in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So all that has led to this moment on the 25th, the night after the fire. People in Ürümqi marched onto the streets. Videos started circulating on social media, And in one video, you see people standing in front of a government building, which apparently was the division headquarters and the party committee of the 12th Division of Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. And I was writing this, I was like, how do I even explain what this is? But basically, it's a state-owned economic and paramilitary organization.
It's the East India Company.
Also, if the East India Company also built concentration camps in India.
Oh, well,
So think worse, basically.
Yeah. Worse than the East India Company.
Yeah.
All right.
So, there's just, fact-checking is good. Some reports said this is the city government building. It's not. No. But this is the government, actual government in control of the area.
Because it's a colony of China's.
Exactly. So they were in front of a government building, waving the PRC national flag. That red one with 5 stars on it, that was dyed with the revolutionary soldiers' blood.
If you want to know the colors, the icon for our podcast, we use the red and the yellow from the Chinese flag in our.
I don't think we use the exact same one.
We do.
Oh, you checked and we used the same one?
I took
My
it.
God. What message are we sending, Natalie? So we're going to have to rectify that. We're going to have to rectify that. Yeah. Anyway, so they were waving this flag and they were singing the national anthem, March of the Volunteers, as a form of protesting. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching the video, I got confused for a second because they were also chanting no more lockdowns and you're supposed to serve the people to the government building, the government employees, I guess. Sorry, the government officials.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I get it now. And it does make sense. And let me explain. The people were there to protest the government and its zero COVID policies and its abuse of power over the people. And one might think the national flag, the national anthem, that's a representation of the government. Yes?
No.
But also no.
Not in my American sense.
Well, in the Chinese sense.
Yeah.
The thing about China is that sometimes it's also hard to separate the concept of China and the CCP government and China, the country.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're all the same, but when there's a one-party system, it's like North Korea. Do you hear the voice of the North Korean people? You don't hear it. There is no alternative other than the Kim Jong-un's voice, right?
Yes.
So it's really hard to separate that. And obviously the CCP is quite happy about that, and they do everything they can to not separate it. They do everything they can to bind all this together, so they have the monopoly, right?
Yeah.
But when these people stand in front of the government building, putting themselves in danger, and announce that they've had enough, and they sing the national anthem and wave the flag as part of the protest, it tells you that they don't think the government represents China or the government represents them. They're saying the government, the people in power, doesn't have a monopoly in defining what China is and what the Chinese people think and do. By waving the flag, they're saying, we are China, and you're betraying us, and you're betraying China. Right?
Nationalism is a double-edged sword, Cherry.
Damn it.
For government?
I wrote that sentence and I also wrote...
You wrote nationalism, double-edged sword? I
said, and that's the thing, nationalism, patriotism is a double-edged sword.
Ooh.
Then I wrote, I'm sure no one has said that before. So, I want to date back to a few more examples.
Sorry for stealing your thunder there, Cherry.
I don't think it's my thunder. I think this thunder has been played millions of times.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it is interesting, though, because, if you're a dictator, the problem with nationalism, or whatever you are, the problem with nationalism is it can be very effective because it mobilizes everybody and you can conscript millions upon millions of people to fight for you and all these things. But the problem is that they can decide as a nation that you're not serving
their purpose,
right?
Yeah.
And when you convince people to fight and die for you and do all these things, then they're going to have certain expectations of your government as well.
Exactly.
Which, yeah.
Only that we're not there yet in China.
No.
But maybe we're, I want to say it's out of the realm of possibility. Maybe wishful thinking. I also want to date us back to earlier to 2020. When the COVID whistleblower, Dr. Li Wenliang, passed away, the Chinese internet was blown.
I mean, almost was murdered, basically, but...
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
Their New York Times did a in-depth reporting and fact check that it's not like they actually murdered him, but they basically did murder him. But medically speaking, it's not like the doctors who treated him murdered him.
No. But I mean, they put him in a situation. I think they also overworked him and stuff while he was getting COVID.
Exactly.
And, so it was.
Yeah. When he passed away, the Chinese internet was boiling, and on this other big social media website called Douban, which is not the Weibo. And this used to be one of my favorites. And I said, that's like my equivalent of Tumblr if Americans in our listeners needs a reference.
Okay.
Back to your teenage years.
It's a little bit more quirky.
Yes. Douban took down user posts with the first line of the national anthem in it.
What's the first line of the national anthem?
Arise, people who would not be slaves. And then they took posts down on the ground that the posts, quote unquote, contained radical politics and ideology.
Arise, ye people who will not be slaves. Mm-hmm. Isn't that similar? I think that's similar to the Internationale.
You know, how many revolutionary songs can you write? How many? I mean, it's the same as like, you know, I don't know. Do you hear the people sing, you know?
Well, that's from a musical. That's not...
I know. You know what? Our listeners, Natalie puts down, do you hear the people sing?
No,
I know it's a made up song. I think they could have, but that song unites so many people today.
I know that, sure. No, but you keep acting like it's the national anthem of France or something.
Well, I know it's not.
It's made up for a British musical.
I know, but it's a good song.
That's fine. You're okay to like the song.
Thank you. It has the revolutionary spirit.
Sure, it has the revolutionary spirit.
It also says people who would not be slaves again. Okay? So that's, you know, it's a line. It's a line that works, which is why it's everywhere. And here's when I wrote, and that's the thing. Nationalism, patriotism is a double-edged sword. I'm sure no one has said that before.
You said it before.
And you said that before. We've said it like 4 times in the past 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The Chinese government, the CCP, uses it to advance its own agenda and very much relies on it a lot of the times. But it's a tricky business, right? It's a balanced rope to walk.
Yeah.
And a national anthem being the literal voice and sound of a country and its nationalism reflects a lot about that country and its people. When a country established a national anthem for the first time, that's because a modern nation state is probably established for the first time too on that land. When a country adopts a new national anthem and retires the old, it's because there was regime change, probably.
Yeah.
When a country's national anthem is used to voice dissent towards its own government, well, that means the government really screwed up.
Well, depends on the scope of it, because that's just like a Tuesday in the United States. People will wave the flag and storm the Capitol and sing the national anthem and all that kind of stuff.
They did do that.
So
Americans, though, I would say it's an entirely different case.
We're an
There's
outlier.
not a day where in America that some people want to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
Not a day goes by without that. Can I quote The West Wing?
Oh my God. Okay, sure. Quote The West Wing.
Come on, I love it. Okay, you know what? I've researched. My love for it comes back.
You know, Cherry.
I went through some cynical years.
Cherry has these West Wing quotes. Let me tell you, she doesn't write these into the script of the episode.
No, it just comes to me.
We're just talking, and then here comes the West Wing quote. Okay, so
I love it.
Okay, so what's the West
Well,
Wing?
actually, you don't know if I wrote it in the script.
You did not write it in the script. You just watched the West Wing that many times. Okay, what's the
I
quote?
probably watched it like 3 times at least.
And there's like 70 something episodes. Anyways,
Well, I started when I was young.
let's hear it.
I think it was Debbie Federer, or maybe it was someone else. Someone was interviewing to be working in the White House,
Okay.
a White House job, right? And then you fill out a questionnaire. They go like, have you tried to overthrow the government? Have you tried to endanger the president in any way or whatever? And then obviously they say, no, I haven't tried to overthrow the government. And I think one of the White House employees walks in, one of Sorkin's favorites walks in and goes, you haven't tried to overthrow the federal government? What has been stopping you? So it's a feature. You overthrow it every 4 years, really.
Yeah.
4 to 8. Depends on.
Yeah.
Depends on, or during the midterm elections, Anyways, let's come back to China. And when there are changes in politics or international relationships, that could also often lead to the lyrics of the national anthem to be altered or a new anthem to be adopted.
Yeah.
For example, the Soviet Union state anthem was performed without its original lyrics for 2 decades after Stalin's death, during the de-Stalinization period. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Okay.
De-Stalinization.
It continues to be used as today's Russian national anthem, just with a new set of lyrics. So, the history of the national anthem is the history of the nation, or the state, or the whatever you call it, the entity.
Well,
And-
the modern nation state, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
national anthems are a pretty recent thing.
Well, Natalie,
Yeah.
do you know? Here's the fun fact of this episode. Do you know what was the first officially designated national anthem in the world on earth.
First national anthem. Yeah, well, they'd have to be some sort of a nation, right? Nation state.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't just be something that's like an empire. Well, I guess.
You would think it's an empire.
I'm going to guess France.
No. It is Great Britain's God Save the Queen,
Really?
which was adopted officially in 1745. Quite early.
Yeah.
And I know at the time they had a queen. When the monarch of the time is female, it is the queen. When it's a king, then king replaces the queen, and the masculine or feminine pronouns are replaced in the lyrics. Quite versatile. Although it does require a monarchy to be part of the nation, though. So
Yeah.
to be head of the state. So I don't know if it's that versatile.
God Save the Prime Minister doesn't have quite the same.
No, it doesn't, right?
No, it's quite the same.
Especially if
rank.
they've gone through like 5 of them in the past, like 2
Year,
months or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, year. Sorry, that was an exaggeration. Okay, so
Oh, God forbid you make a joke on this podcast, sure.
the nation we're going to talk about today, big surprise, China.
Wow. Who
Okay.
knew?
So after how many minutes? Many minutes of talking about why we're doing an episode on the history of the Chinese national anthems. We're actually going to start talking about the history of the Chinese national anthems. Okay, so you might think, our listeners, because the Republic of China was the new China born in the 20th century and the first modern nation state on, I guess, this land.
Yeah.
That's when China had its first national anthem. But no. It happened before that.
Okay.
In the late 19th century, as much as the Qing dynasty didn't want to lower themselves and mingle with other nations, namely the Europeans, as equals, they couldn't stop the tide from coming in. And reluctantly, the Qing court sent out its first team of diplomats to various countries. Almost all of these would be the first Chinese diplomat ever to be sent to that country. And of course, China has sent court officials to surrounding countries before, right? Way before that.
Yeah.
But these countries were treated more like tributaries. And these officials were not ambassadors or diplomats.
No.
They were really there to, accept tributes and to accept the respect on the behalf of the Chinese emperor.
To tell those countries what the Chinese emperor would like them to do.
Exactly. So these diplomats would be sent to European countries and attend ceremonies and events. And the Europeans, at these ceremonies, there's a band. They play national anthems of the attending countries,
Yeah.
which is something that the Chinese didn't do.
And they have flags,
They
which
have
is a whole other
flags,
thing.
right? So a few of these diplomats just had to write their own song and had it be played at whatever ceremony they were at. Because there is a process. The band's got to learn the song, right? You need to give them a music sheet.
And also when you enter, they need to play your nation's
Exactly.
song.
It's all choreographed. And,
So otherwise they don't have anything to play.
Exactly. So these diplomats, they often just borrowed a traditional Chinese tune, maybe from a Chinese opera, and then they either write a poem themselves or use a historical poem as lyrics and put them together. The earliest known one of these unofficial national anthems was called The World's Delight. And it was put together by diplomat Zheng Jizhe in 1878.
Okay.
And I just want to mention again, these were unofficial, okay? It's not like the Qing court said, this is our national anthem.
Yeah.
It's just on the international stage, a Chinese diplomat had to do this and hand it over and say, this is our national anthem. And a Chinese diplomat, Xue Fucheng, wrote in his diary that in 1887, 9 years later after Zheng Jizhe put together that first unofficial national anthem, this year, 1887, the British State Department sent a request to the Qing court to ask for the music notes of China's national anthem so that the band can learn and play it. And the Chinese official responded, we looked up all the Chinese songs we have on profile. Apparently, there's a collection of Chinese songs and music notes in the court in the library or something. And there's only one that could be played with Western instruments. It is called The World's Delight. We hereby send it. Please accept. So, it's like I'm not even sure they understood this was Zheng Jizhe's national anthem. They were just like, this is the only one we can find that you can play. Looks like, and it was written in Western style. That's how things got done.
Yeah.
So anyone who feels like they're having like a bullshit job and like they're not very competent, just think about these Qing officials. You will feel much better. So
Just picking a random song and be like, just send them this.
Yes. And surprisingly, we do know what the World's Delight song was supposed to sound like.
Okay.
Thanks to an American.
I'm bringing it back, Cherry. Bringing it back to America.
John Philip Sousa.
Sousa.
Oh, is he called Sousa? John Philip Sousa, an American composer and conductor for American military marches.
He's very famous.
A Marine Corps officer, Natalie. AKA, you know what they call him? The American March King. So I guess America didn't have a king after all.
No, but all of these like marching band, like, because marching bands, I mean, there's marching bands in Europe, but like marching bands is like a civic thing, is a very American thing, right? You have the parade, you have the high school marching band, and you know, there's all these big famous brass heavy marches. Sousa wrote like a million of them.
A lot of them, yeah. Well, did you know?
That's where the sousaphone comes from, I think, which is a type of...
Why do I ask Annie, did you know? You would know anyway.
Oh, is that really what you're about to talk about, the sousaphone?
I said, who helped develop the sousaphone? Which was named after him. Anyway, so
it's
you
like
get
a smaller tuba, I think, the sousaphone.
Okay, well, I guess, you know what? I was like, oh my God, I didn't know about this guy. Who is this guy? I guess maybe our American audiences can tell us. You too, like Natalie, would be like, oh, I've heard of him, of course. So, okay, cultural differences here. So
I don't actually know if everybody knows who John Philip Sousa is. I might just be a dork, so.
Okay. Well, John Philip Sousa, Mr. Sousa, authored this book called National, Patriotic, and Typical Arts of All Lands in 1890.
All right.
In it listed world's nations' songs, not just national songs, but like typical airs, I guess.
Okay.
And it listed The World's Delight as China's national air. There were no lyrics though, but there was the music note. You can find a copy of it played by the Victor Military Band. We'll put it in the show notes and we'll play it here. Then there was another song put together by no other than the famous politician, general, and diplomat Li Hongzhang himself.
Ooh.
In 1896. Is he like the second favorite after Yuan Shikai on your roster?
Well, he's a big, he's a big name during that period.
Well, he is, because when he was visiting European countries...
He didn't hire Sun Yat-sen to be his... He didn't want to listen to Sun Yat-sen's ideas.
Well, if he did...
And set him on the path of a revolutionary.
Exactly. So, in 1896, when he was visiting European countries, they needed to play the Chinese National Anthem in all these welcoming ceremonies they had for him.
Yeah.
So it was Tune of Li Zhongtang, which was a little weird that it got his name as the title for the Chinese National Anthem. But you know, it's back in the days.
Yeah.
Li Zhongtang is like the unofficial name of the job, the government title he had. So he adapted a Tang Dynasty poem and put it together with a traditional Chinese song. And here's a translation of the poem. In the golden palace, amongst the overlapping purple pavilions, like a jade lotus flower in the immortal's palm, the song of heaven of supreme peace pays tribute to heaven's song in its 5-color chariot of clouds drawn by 6 dragons. Fun, isn't it? Yeah. But this was short-lived. And then there was another one after that was called The Praise of the Dragon Flag, which was a military song as well. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to read like 12 different poems about the yellow dragon and about 5 color clouds. This episode will never end.
So, but there was no central directive. It was just, and they didn't use them internally. No. It's just when some Westerners needed to play a song, they're like, just use this.
Here's it. Yeah, right? So after the handful of unofficial national anthems, finally, in 1911, the Qing court was like, okay, it's time. Let's make a national anthem. Let's make it official. So it was 6 days before the Wuchang uprising broke out, which began the Xinhai Revolution, which overthrew the Qing dynasty 2 months later. So, the Qing court, they realized they really got to seize the day. They declared a national anthem
I think the day's over.
No. They declared a national anthem just days before they would have lost the chance to do so.
They got on the list.
And I really feel like this is symbolic and ironic because much like the reform efforts made by the Qing court near the end of its life, all these new policies and reforms they tried to push out near the end.
Yeah.
She
was finally dead.
It was just too little and too late.
Yeah.
Since the Qing emperor officially abdicated only a little more than a month after this national anthem was declared, it was never performed publicly. Do we still want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. The song was not to be.
What did they come up with?
Well, the name of the song was Cup of Solid Gold.
Okay.
A cup of solid gold, this is an actual thing that is used in rituals and ceremonies by the emperor. And the cup is a representation of a prosperous, solid, indestructible country. Haha.
Gold's kind of soft though, actually.
But it's solid gold.
Oh.
So do we want to hear the
Sure.
lyrics? Okay. It says, solidify our golden empire. Follow the will of heaven. All of creation will celebrate. All of mankind will be filled with happiness. As long as the Qing rules, may the enlightened empire and its vast boundaries be protected.
Cherry, you know what happened after that? Japanese invaded. So clearly the song's right.
Yeah. The sky is high, the sea is turbulent. That's the lyrics.
Okay, that's coming out a little bit grim at the end there.
Yeah. So now, after this very short-lived national anthem that was never played.
This national anthem of unity.
Yes.
And loyalty to the Qing.
Now we get Republic of China.
Wow.
New China. This is a modern state, Natalie. This is a modern nation state. Unlike the backwards, decaying Qing court, they did not wait to establish a national anthem.
No, you gotta strike while it's hot.
Gotta do a good job at the marketing department, to win some hearts and minds. Mm-hmm. So they did. The song of 5 races under one union was created in 1912 immediately and was used by the provisional government in Nanjing. It was used for 1 year.
The flag is also 5 colors.
5 colors,
for 5 races. So they've got a theming here.
They got a theme. Here are the lyrics. China, earliest civilization of East Asia.
Okay, it's getting very specific. First divorced Chinese woman, astronaut or something.
Well, it's gonna get more specific.
Okay.
The second line says, admiring America and chasing Europe.
Okay.
The old nation.
It's like a romance.
I mean, it's very much an image building on the international stage. You know what I'm saying? They were trying to.
Well, normally you don't put your crushes in the song.
Well, they did. So they were just that brave, And then it said, the old nation is under new construction. The 5-colored flag flutters high. I thought you would like this.
No, it'd be funny though if that was still the anthem today, and it's 70 years later, you're still singing "The old nation is still under new construction."
Exactly. And then it said, "The 5-colored flag flutters high. The glory of the republic." We're a republic now. Don't you forget. The glory of the republic shines over mountains and rivers. Let us sing for civilization. The universal peace shall forever be protected. So, not bad. I mean, sure. It's our message.
It's a work in progress.
But it's our message, right? It's direct, it's clear what we're doing here. And then in 1913, the song to the auspicious cloud was named the official national anthem.
Okay, so that was the interim one.
That was the interim one. The interim government had an interim song.
Okay.
You see? So now there are 2 versions of the song
the interim song should just be called "America, Please Give Us Money and Guns."
Yeah, exactly. Admiring America and chasing Europe.
Stop Japan from bullying us.
Exactly. Oh, Natalie, that wouldn't be dignified.
All right.
So, the song to the auspicious cloud, there were 2 versions. The first version was composed by a Belgian composer and accompanied by a traditional Chinese poem. And this Chinese poem came from the commentary of Shangshu, written in 200 to 100 BCE. So long history. They really went back.
Yeah.
They're like, let's find something that reflects on this earliest civilization of East Asia. So
Not even all of Asia. They didn't want to put that out there.
no,
They
they're
didn't
like, let's not.
be more specific.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into
You don't want anyone to fact check us.
Yeah, we don't want to get any arguments here
Yeah. So
with India or something.
yeah. So the lyrics say, or the poems say, how bright is the auspicious cloud? How broad is the brilliancy? The light is spectacular with sun and moon. How it revives dawn after dawn. Time has changed. The whole nation is no longer owned by one person. You know what? Now reading this, I think the last line wasn't in the poem that was written in 200 to 100 BCE. It seems a little weird.
Unless it was like Three Kingdoms period,
Yeah,
ruled by 3 people.
I know.
They might have modified it slightly.
Well, so the first version was the Belgian composer's music was used from 1913 to 1915.
Okay.
And you know why they had to stop using it in 1915? You want to know what happened in 1915?
I know what happened.
You want to take a wild guess?
Maybe there was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
A really cool, tragically misunderstood guy.
No.
Who thought with the best of intentions,
Yeah.
what China really needed was to go back to having an emperor.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is that what happened in 1915?
I think that's what happened.
Was that guy's name Ren Shikai?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I wrote, don't worry. Even though Yuan Shikai took us back into the imperial age again, he didn't forget the need for a national anthem.
No, because he loved that stuff.
He released his own.
The Ren Shikai theme song.
You know the name of the national anthem he declared?
Well, I know his emperor, his dynasty was like the constitutional dynasty.
Yeah.
So
Well, he wanted to be like the British monarchy. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm the
he wanted to be like the British monarchy, but also everybody has to do what he says.
exactly. So, the name of the national anthem at this time, China heroically stands in the universe. Okay, here's the lyric of the song, okay?
Okay.
China heroically stands in the universe, extending to the 8 corners of the world. You get it? 8
Yeah, I
corners,
get
8
it.
directions. Okay.
I get the concept.
Descendants came from Kunlun Peak, which is in Chinese history lore. Kunlun Peak is like it's a high place. The rivers turn great and the mountains continue. 5 races, he didn't forget about the 5 races. 5 races open up the sky of Yao for many years to come.
So the reason the 5 races are important is because...
What are the 5 races?
Well, let me just start. First off,
Okay.
people forget, but the Qing Empire was an empire. It had conquered lands, which it ruled as conquered territories, essentially.
Yeah.
And with the birth of nationalism and other stuff.
Can I say Xinjing literally means new territory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the birth of nationalism and the weakening of the empire, a lot of these places who, like the Mongols, who were quite happy to, fight for the Qing government and in exchange for payments and stuff. But, they're thinking, do we really need to be part of this new Republic of China, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do we get out of it?
Yeah.
And so the races are, I think, Uyghurs,
Yeah.
or Chinese
Well,
Muslims.
when we see Uyghurs, I also want to state it's not exactly the same as that.
Well,
more back in 100 years ago, that was more of a general term of
we'll say
the Uyghurs, the Hui ethnic.
We'll say steppe
minority.
Muslim peoples. What?
Sure.
So Manchus,
And of course, you got to get the Manchus,
Tibetan,
Mongolians.
How many am I at?
You forgot the most important one, Natalie. This is a Han-centric nation.
White people?
Yeah.
Oh no,
Well, white people of China, I guess.
Han Chinese people.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 races, and it's an attempt to be like, no, the Qing Empire is gone, but you've been grandfathered in to this new, fun
Republic.
Yeah.
Only that Yuan Shikai then brought it back to.
I mean, you're on the flag, right?
Sure. Yeah. So that was Yuan Shikai's national anthem, and there were also several versions of this. This is a complicated history, you see. This episode is going to be long.
He was only emperor for like a couple months.
There were several versions because he died in 1916.
Yeah.
So in 1916, they continued to use the song, but changed the lyrics to reflect that it is a republic.
Okay.
They were like, let's turn it back just a year later.
Maybe it was a good song. They're like, we like the song.
Okay. So,
Well, maybe it was.
in 1921, I'm going to just...
They didn't go back to the auspicious cloud.
Oh my God.
They could have done that.
You know what Yuan Shikai lacks?
What?
Credit. That's what he lacks. That's what we on this podcast needs to give him. Credit.
He wrote poetry.
So, in 1921, we're back to Song to the Auspicious Cloud. We're a republic, right?
We're back to the cloud.
Yeah. So that was another 7 years. And in 1928, finally, we have the three principles of the people, which is, I guess, one of the modern Chinese national anthems that we know today.
And those are Sun Yat-sen's famous.
The lyrics were adapted from Sun Yat-sen's speech. The three principles of the people is what guides the national government, the nationalist government, and its governance. I don't think they follow it truly. Methods and
Well, one of the three
ethics.
principles is land reform. And when your government is propped up and supported by all of the wealthy landowners, then those two things are kind of at odds.
Yeah, exactly. But they put it in the song. You know, it's a good song. So the music was composed by a Chinese composer, Chen Maoyun, I think, Chen Maoyun. And here are the lyrics, okay? Three people's principles, the foundation of our party. You know, I don't know if I need to read this. I think we can just play the music in this episode.
Sure.
Right? Okay, but I'm going to read it.
But the music's going to be in Chinese.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, my two worlds are blending in together. I'm getting confused. Okay, well, I will still speak the lyrics.
For the Laowai in the audience.
Yeah. Three, also for Natalie.
Yeah.
Three people's principles, the foundation of our party.
Well, that's interesting though, because I guess, I mean, technically the new China was a multi-party state, but the anthem was of one party. I guess even Taiwan today,
our party.
the flag is still the KMT flag. Okay.
Yeah. So using this, we establish the republic. Using this, we advance into a state of total peace. Also, I'm like 10 seconds late, but staircase way. What you said, exactly. It's really hard to separate the country and the people and the party when it's like a one-state system.
Yeah.
There's no, So, anyways, back to the song. Using this, we establish the republic. Using this, we advance into a state of total peace. Oh, you, righteous man, for the people, be the vanguard. Without resting day or night, follow the principles, swear to be diligent, swear to be courageous. Obliged to be trustworthy, obliged to be loyal. With one heart and one virtue, we carry through until the very end.
And the three principles are they nationalism, democracy, and people's livelihood?
Yes. And to this day, it is the ROC, the Republic of China, Taiwan's official national anthem. Still around. And now, after this marathon of the history, we finally get to talk about March of the Volunteers.
Ooh.
义勇军进行曲, the national anthem of the PRC to the state.
Because the communists love songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very good at propaganda, and songs
Love
part
songs.
of it. So, it was actually the theme song of a movie to begin with. The movie was called Children of the Storm. It was about the war effort against the Japanese invaders. And it was the brainchild of leftist groups in literature and arts and cinema and drama and music in 1930s Shanghai.
Okay.
The writer Tian Han in 1934 was tasked to write the story for the film and the song for the film. He was arrested by the KMTs because he was a leftist, remember?
Yeah.
Communist sympathizer, or just a communist. I don't remember if he was actually officially, but yeah, he was a leftist. And he was imprisoned just after finishing the original draft of the movie and the lyrics of the song. The lyrics was then sent to composer Nie, who made minor modifications to fit his melody. And here is the final version of the lyrics. It is also the version we use today. Okay? It says, "Arise, people who refuse to be slaves." Or, "Yea, people who refuse to be slaves.
Sure.
With our flesh and blood, let us build the new Great Wall. China has reached the moment of the greatest danger. Each of us is forced to let out a final roar. Arise, arise, arise. 10,000 people, one heart. Together, we will brave the enemy's cannon fire. Forward. Brave the enemy's cannon fire. Forward. Forward, forward, forward."
You know, the Great Wall thing, it's interesting because, we did an episode on that, right?
Yeah.
About how the Great Wall built China.
Well, quite literally, through this song,
Yeah.
it rebuilt China.
You got to build a new Great Wall.
I know. So, the lyrics, it's not bad.
No, it's
Really,
good.
from an artistic perspective, like what this song's purpose was.
Yeah.
And not to mention, this was written in vernacular Chinese. All the other national anthems we've mentioned, traditional Chinese. So this is a lot more accessible. And the lyrics speaks to the people directly. And it uses we and us a lot. It is a call to action, arise.
Yeah.
It's got the nationalism. We got to build the new Great Wall. There are many reasons why this is very effective.
Yeah, it's good.
And it got pretty popular pretty quickly. And according to... Oh, shit. I forgot to put the reference in here. I'll put the reference down below.
Well, also the thing is that, a good national anthem, I feel like, it doesn't talk about how great your country is.
Yeah.
It's like about something external.
Yeah.
Because that way,
Enemy. There's an enemy.
there's an enemy. The United States national anthem, it's the British, right? But it's
Yeah.
talking about a struggle. And I feel like people can get behind that, whereas it's just talking about the auspicious cloud,
Yeah.
or the golden cup. It's like,
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah. But you as a person, as one of the people, you are like, I can identify with
I'm going to be part of that Great Wall.
Yes. Because it is designed effectively for you to identify with.
Yeah.
And according to Robert Chi, who's better at music critiquing than I am, in this book called Re-Envisioning the Chinese Revolution, the Politics and Poetics of Collective Memories in Reform China.
Okay.
As I am no music critic, I am going to quote him. And I also wrote here, 10 years of piano, all for nothing. Okay, so quote, he wrote, "The music of the song is characteristic of Niar's movie songs to the same extent that it is unusual in the overall popular music context of the early 1930s.
Okay.
Unlike most other movie songs and even many politically charged ones at the time, the March of the Volunteers, our national anthem, here, was written less in a soft Chinese popular style suitable for a single female voice, and more in a brisk military march style that calls for a whole choirs of voices, especially male ones." So anyone who's quoting "Women Hold Up Half the Sky," okay? It was designed for the male audience. So the song caught on in the leftist circle at the time very quickly. And apparently, sing-alongs was popular in 1930s China in these circles. Like Natalie said, the communists love songs. So the leftist groups would organize sing-alongs in major cities around the countries, and they would sing the song in hundreds or even thousands. And this was one of the most popular choices. And it became known abroad as well. And this is all before it became the Chinese national anthem, okay? This is all like 1930s and 40s.
This was before the communists had control of China. So
Exactly. Yeah. Quote Robert again. "On Christmas Eve 1939, the New York Times published the score of the song, along with a musicological analysis filed by a Chinese correspondent from Chongqing. The report summarizes anecdotally the archetypical kind of interaction that the song elicited in conjunction with cinema. When our 3 eastern provinces were taken by the Japanese in 1931, patriotic songs were suddenly sung everywhere, as if they were written overnight by mass production." And I will just note here, this song was written like several years after that, okay?
Yeah.
Not immediately, but the sentiment is true here. So during the intermission in a movie show, often a voice would burst into the air, singing, "Arise, ye who refuse to be slaves." And many a voice would spontaneously join in, "With our very flesh and blood, let's build a new Great Wall." And so on to the end of that song. Quote. So, people would just start the sing-alongs, and it's very effective, and it's very feverish,
Yeah.
is the word. So, the song did well. Fast forward, the Japanese was defeated, blah, blah, blah. There was a civil war, the communists won, In 1949, when the CCP began preparation to establish a new China, one of the tasks was to find a new national anthem. They can't use the 3 people's principles, of course.
Yeah.
They launched a public competition for the best song, which is not uncommon with new nation states. They announced it to the public, and in 2 months, the committee received 694 songs, scores and sets of lyrics.
Okay.
But none of them apparently was thought to be very good. And party elders had already suggested the March of the Volunteers before. So the committee was like, okay, let's take another look. So they decided that was the song, but it was a temporary decision, they said. It was not until 2004 that the national anthem was part of the Constitution. So they're like, we'll use this song temporarily. And for many, many years, they used it.
So for 50-something years.
Yeah. And we still use it today, right?
Yeah.
And I want to add an anecdote. Some people in the committee thought the lyrics should be updated, such as, China has reached the moment of the greatest danger. They were like, China's no longer facing the moment of the greatest danger. Maybe it should be changed.
You know what the greatest danger is, Cherry? Revisionism.
Yeah, exactly.
Reactionaries, Cherry.
Well, Zhou Enlai insisted if we change it, it would not arouse the same emotions as it did before.
I mean, the British aren't still bombarding Fort McHenry in Baltimore. You know, we don't have to change the song
Right.
and update it.
Mao decided, indeed, we need to be prepared for danger in times of peace. The committee unanimously agreed.
Of course they did.
They're like, the revolution will never end.
They're like, I'm not sure about this. And Mao's like, we should do this. Everyone's like, yeah, that sounds like
Yeah,
good.
unanimously.
Yeah.
So, well, and we go through some tumultuous decades,
Yeah.
which we will not go into in this episode because we have enough episodes talking about those and probably will be more. In 1966, Cultural Revolution started.
Oh boy.
And no surprise, Tian Han, the writer who wrote the lyrics of the national anthem, was declared to be anti-party and anti-socialism. Luckily, the writer of the music, the composer, passed away many years ago. So he didn't have to suffer through this.
luckily they died rather
Well,
than
yeah, no, this is the Cultural Revolution.
I know.
You can't use your common sense in this. So apparently there was this play he wrote about a female patrol officer in the Tang Dynasty during Wu Zetian's reign who resisted the powerful and the rich and pleaded for the people, who was eventually persecuted and tortured to death by the establishment.
We should do an episode about this play.
We should. This was the play that got him in trouble because they're like, he's hinting in the Communist Party is the establishment.
That was the thing about the Cultural Revolution, is that any play that was anti-establishment, which obviously was all the plays until 1950, because the establishment was all, you know what I mean?
Someone else.
Yeah.
I think he wrote that recently. But
I know, but I mean, it's a revolutionary country. You want to write plays about people.
I know. But I don't know if we want to rationalize this because
No, I'm just saying. And then, so like a lot of people who wrote things that were very pro-communist and very political, they all got turned on. Because,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I wrote, this was the play that supposedly got him in trouble, but it could have easily been anything else, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tian Han was struggle-sessioned. That's a word. That's a verb. He was jailed. He was beaten. He was humiliated. You name it. All the brutal, relentless sufferings that was just way too common during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah.
Right? And he died in 1968 from diabetes, kidney failure, and heart disease. Yeah, I'm sure the physical torture and the possible mistreatment had no effect there. Much like Li Wenliang, he was murdered by the state. I think that's fair to say. But when he died, they even used a fake name, which was not uncommon. Some of the other high-profile, disgraced government CCP officials died during the Cultural Revolution. Was also put a fake name on his
grave.
They criminate people and. His son was not, apparently his family wasn't even notified, this whole thing. Yeah. Anyway, so he died alone and in great pain and suffering. So someone like that, you can't sing the words written by him anymore during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah.
He was a traitor. And you know what? They kicked him out of the party in 1975, 7 years after he died. They're like, we fire you. It's like, yeah, right, you really showed him. So when the national anthem needed to be played during the Cultural Revolution, they didn't sing with it, at least not inside of mainland China. And sometimes east is red, or sailing the seas depends on the helmsman. Another song would be played instead as the national anthem.
You know the helmsman is?
Mao?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, other revolutionary songs just gets put in. In 1976, the Cultural Revolution ended. And you think, okay, we can go back to normal again, right? No.
Is China normal today even?
Right? In 1978, 2 years later, the lyrics was changed to a new version, and this was quote-unquote discussed in the meeting of the 5th National People's Representative Congress.
Okay.
We did an episode on this about how these discussions might go and whether they are truly people's representatives.
We did 3 episodes on this.
Well, we did 3 episodes on this.
democracy
Yeah,
in
that was a
China.
marathon. So you want to know the lyrics that was put in 1978?
Okay.
It says, "March on, people of all heroic nationalities. The great Communist Party leads us in continuing the long march." So no more Great Wall. "Millions with but one heart towards a communist future. Develop and protect the country in a brave struggle. March on, march on, march on. We will, for generations, rise high, Mao Zedong's banner, march on. Rise high, Mao Zedong's banner, march on, march on, march on." Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm guessing they didn't
it was weird, right? This was weird.
I'm guessing they didn't keep that one for very long.
I think it's weirder than like the Gold Cup.
Was that like the Gang of Four did that one or what?
No, this was after. Here's the thing. It was weird, but it was politically correct at the time. They didn't throw Mao out of the... They didn't, they were like, we got to keep this going.
Yeah.
He's the cornerstone of this party.
We can't admit this was all just a massive screw up.
Yes. So some of these people's representatives later on in their life, they're like, yeah, we weren't happy about that. But no one disagreed officially.
Yeah.
So in 1979, Tian Han, the writer who wrote the lyrics, was rehabilitated.
I mean, he was dead, but his
He was dead.
his
But,
legacy,
his
his legacy
legacy.
was rehabilitated.
Yeah. So now we can sing his words again.
I'm imagining it's like there's like a gravestone and there's like a little party badge. In 1975, somebody ripped it off.
Yeah, and then you put it
And
back
then
on.
they glue it back on.
Exactly. So 3 years later, in 1982, the People's Congress once again reinstated the original lyrics.
Okay.
After that, it hasn't changed. Although I don't know, any day now we could be changing it to another weirder version, maybe. Depends on how this dictatorship goes. So now I want to talk about Hong Kong.
Okay.
We're coming to present day China and Chinese politics. And in the past decade or so, the CCP government has pushed for more and more patriotic national education in Hong Kong's schools. This would include guidelines of what to be taught and what not to be taught. You need to learn
Also more Mandarin too.
more Mandarin.
And less
Exactly. It's all
Cantonese.
part of the education. So, this also included demands that the educational department has made that after singing the national anthem, students should feel pride that they are Chinese and they should feel like tearing up. It's very specific instructions,
Yeah.
So before you go, they're just asking the kids to sing the national anthem with pride, what's the big deal? Because in America, kids do it every day. In mainland China, kids do it maybe like
We
once
do
a week.
Pledge of Allegiance.
No, okay, yeah. Well, maybe you sing it once a week or something. You didn't?
Usually not. Normally it was Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, okay. So how would you learn the national anthem?
I mean, it's a sporting event, any sort of.
Oh, interesting.
Thing you
Okay, so
sing
maybe
it
this is a
at.
big deal. But when I was growing up, I had to sing it every Monday morning at least.
Yeah.
Because every Monday morning the school has a meeting and gathering, and you raise the flag and you sing the national anthem.
Normally
Anthem.
you would do Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and then like if there was like an assembly or a sporting event, you would normally do it before the event.
Okay. Well, so you might not think it's a big deal.
But
I want to argue this is a big deal in Hong Kong.
Well, the U.S. is,
To ask the kids to be more
the U.S.
patriotic.
is a very
Holy,
odd
patriotic.
place. So,
Yeah, okay, yeah,
so I
sure.
think, yeah.
Okay, that's true.
I think we're an outlier.
Sure. Okay, so we can't compare it to
I don't
America.
think. I think almost any other country. I've heard from multiple people coming to the U.S. from other countries of why do you guys have so many flags everywhere?
Yes. Well, in regard, U.S. and China are more alike than you think.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal for Hong Kong, though, because Hong Kong has long enjoyed more freedom of speech. It's all on a scale, I know, but they have long enjoyed more freedom of speech and autonomous rule. And what's taught in their schools are not literal propaganda of the CCP, unlike in mainland schools, unlike what I had to study. So this was a push to end all that. And the national anthem, the singing of it, was a big symbolic move. And if you go on YouTube, there's this video of in the school theater, they play the national anthem. It's like a school meeting. And then everyone stands up singing it. And the kids did not sing it. They were singing very loud. You hear the people sing. And it was just so awkward because you see these teachers stand like on the stage, not reacting and trying to sing the national anthem, the Chinese national anthem.
Yeah.
And the kids all like screaming on the top of their lungs. Do you hear the people sing to cover the music? I think it reflects the reality and the conflict that's at play here. So an argument written and submitted to the Legislative Council of Hong Kong. You can find this argument on the Hong Kong government website. And I know that's crazy because, it's like I get to see what's going on inside the Legislative Council of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I get to know who said what and who wrote what. This level of transparency I wrote of the Chinese government, I'm not used to.
Well, the interesting thing about the Hong Kong government is it's, for the most part, it's above board and it's transparent. It's just you can't impact it.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, this was in 2015, so, more transparent than today still. So, the writer, Dr. Chen Yonghao, argues the following against all the educational rules and about, this is all dog whistle, killing our freedom of speech and freedom of education and all that.
It's not really even a dog whistle. It's more of a siren.
Yes, there you go. So he argued, quote, how can a regime that does not respect its own national anthem and modifies it arbitrarily ask the people to have feelings when singing the national anthem and even move to tears?
In the U.S., it's like there's the Pledge of Allegiance. Mm-hmm. And it's like you can't make kids do it. And
Oh, you can't?
I mean, you can make them stand up.
Okay.
But as a kid, you're rebellious. You'll be like, I pledge allegiance to the farts of the United States of America. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right. Kids are going to...
So he argues that in his paper, it's a good paper. I'm going to list it.
Yeah.
And I downloaded the PDF just so that one day if it's not there, I still have it. Hard copies, everyone. Hard copies. So he listed the national anthem's history and Tianhan's suffering and all that, right? Mm-hmm. And he argues... you don't even respect it. This is all arbitrary.
Yeah.
And he says...
You struggle session the guy who wrote it.
Exactly. And he says, quote, should we weep on the spot because of the injustice suffered relating to the national anthem and its creators? And he says, if we really want to learn the national anthem, can I do a project study comparing the original and the revised lyrics after the Cultural Revolution to discuss the development of national conditions? He says, can I teach why was the national anthem banned and changed? What am I going to teach about the Cultural Revolution? What am I going to teach about cultural poisonous weeds, which is what they called Tianhan, the writer. He was a cultural poisonous weed. And he's basically like, what about those issues? If you really want us to get to know about the national anthem, can we learn those? Mm-hmm. Obviously, the answer is no.
Yeah.
If the CCP had their way, right? And I thought that was well argued. Not that it matters because it's not a democracy, and it's not that the best argument or whoever wins the most votes gets to win, but it does reflect how ironic and how transactional this is, and how much truth does the mainland history books hide and twist.
I mean, it's a lesser degree of almost like, I don't know, Mao gave a speech or something. If you didn't act like you were like... Mm-hmm. So emotionally affected. Yeah. There must be something, I don't know, there
must be something wrong with you.
It's like when we talk about, say, I don't want to do emotional labor.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is mandatory.
Yes.
Emotional labor.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it doesn't even matter if it's the national anthem, it's just you're expected to react in this way upon command.
Yes. And he's arguing there is no respect to the truth.
Yeah.
If you want us to learn the national song, fine. I want to learn all of it. I want to teach all of it.
Yeah.
But obviously you won't let me do that.
No.
Right? So I don't know what I'm trying to say. But, I'll attach the paper below. It's in Chinese, but you can Google translate it if you want. Yeah, so we come to today.
Yeah.
In the past decade, very much aligned to what the Communist Party has been pushing in Hong Kong. I'm just free-forming this now, by the way. Very much aligns with that timeline. The Chinese nationalism and the wolf warrior diplomacy is on the rise, right? Mm-hmm. And in world sports events where Hong Kong gets on the stage, wins a medal or something, or a Hong Kong athlete, there have been at least two incidents where I've read in news reports where the glory of Hong Kong is played instead of the Chinese national anthem. And it's like, they always get super freaked out and they're like, oh my God, let's change it. And the athlete's just awkwardly standing there not showing what to do because they don't want to, get canceled for singing it.
Yeah.
When I say get canceled, I don't mean the people cancel them. I mean, they really get canceled by the government, right? And it's just, I think how ironic it is because obviously nationalism is a myth in many ways.
Yeah.
But it's what builds the nation. So it's very much also real.
It's
But
like a civic religion.
I know, but at these sports events, it just seems really easy to sneak another song in. It's not like there's a vote somewhere. You have a vinyl record that cannot be changed.
Yeah.
That is the song, right? So like some people probably at the event probably just like Googles it. Maybe that's how we should treat nationalism sometimes. Maybe we shouldn't treat it so seriously. Yeah. And if you were to treat it, you should know all of it, like the history of the national anthem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just thinking, I mean, do you think China's going to change the national anthem again?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
Maybe. We'll see if it
If it
gets
keeps
banned
turning
again.
into a protest.
Yeah, right? Well, following up on the protest, it does seem like China has been easing, or part of China at least, easing the social controls aspect of the zero COVID policy. Not all of it, right? I'm sure there will be local lockdowns and stuff. But a lot of areas like mass scale, like you got to scan a code wherever you go.
Yeah.
And lots of those codes don't even work, right? Like it's just all fake. Like when people talk about big data in China, it's like, yes, they have it, but it's like, it actually costs a lot. And you need very sophisticated systems to be able to utilize that. It's
too much
and organize
data.
it well. Sometimes it's too much data, right? It's not effective anymore, but they still do it. But from what I've heard, it's like when you land in China in certain airports and stuff, you no longer have to do that. And that's completely different from 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. Obviously, I'm not having false hope of like, this is going to change everything overnight. But I think the immediate suffering is lifted in some areas. And I think without the protesters, this wouldn't have... I mean, some people are like, oh, the government just ran out of money. It's like, no, I think they ran out of money a while ago, actually.
They just weren't paying people.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe they hit a point where they had to pay the people or stop it. But I mean, I think it absolutely would not have happened if these brave people didn't go onto the streets in China.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, hopefully...
If those Ürümqi people didn't sing the national anthem in front of the government building.
Hopefully that put things into perspective for everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe you should think about your own national anthem and where it came from and if it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
New water margin episode coming next week.
Lighter topic.
So please look forward to that.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate everybody who tunes in, and thank you for listening.
See you next time.